I got in contact with Spiritfilled about 2.5 years ago, and that's really where my sort of relationship built from there. I spoke closely with Russell and Ross about the ins and outs of whisky investment and so on and so forth, and the services that they offer with that as well. One of my first jobs was in a bar, and I was fortunate enough that they would take us on sort of whisky tasting courses and things like that. And that's really where my love for whisky grew from. I found it very interesting how different areas and even across the globe now produces different tastes and whiskies and so on and so forth. So naturally that's led on to progression to investing because I know that it is a solid investment to make, and it's something that I put quite a bit of time in over the last sort of couple of years, and naturally that's what's led me to Spiritfilled. I really hate sort of hard salesy, and what I found with a lot of the market, it reminded me almost like car sales type of scenario. Whereas with Spiritfilled, Russell and Ross, they really took the time to understand what I was looking to do, and ultimately that's where the relationship sort of grown from there. And at that time as well, I was not long going into self-employment too, so we had a number of sort of conversations about how we could potentially work together throughout that period of time, and I'm that type of person that I wouldn't really put my money down until I know exactly what's going on. So having that sort of service was exactly the reason why I decided to go with Spiritfilled. From the start, Russell obviously made me aware of the different options that I've got, and I told him about my plan in terms of what I wanted to do for my children and where we're going to be going with this. And he also, well, more interesting for me, I think I gave him quite a lot of questions to answer, and he made me fully aware that the possibility of re-racking the whisky and changing it barrels and taking it down different directions, which was very interesting to me because naturally, as we all know, there's many different ways to get a finished product within the world of whisky. So that was something that we'll get to hopefully later on, but absolutely I think it's very interesting to know the basis that I can put it in different casks and so on and so forth, bourbon, red wine, etc., sherry. So yeah, it took me from start to finish essentially, and it's something that I look forward to doing because one slight change can make all the difference to what's going to come out in the finished product, which is hopefully for the better. The ongoing costs is something that I was made aware of right at before I made the purchase actually, so the funds transfer, signed the contract, etc. So absolutely everything was in writing and everything was described to me on the phone, and that's exactly what would happen. It'd be taken, it'd be stored for myself, which is great news. It was something that I thought that maybe I would have to have a more of an input in that, but ultimately they have taken care of all that. The process was really seamless in all honesty, it was really hands off, albeit we knew that we had some whisky stored away for us. Whisky for me has always been seen as a sort of long-term investment, but recently in April this year, my mind was completely changed on that. So the way that I sort of see whisky investment now is a real opportunity not to put money into savings account, but ultimately utilise whisky for that. And the reason for that is I invested with Spiritfilled 2 years ago now. One of the barrels that I had with them had sat with them for 18 months. And in April when I got married, one of the things that I was looking to do was free up some funds to pay for my wedding. So I inquired about the whisky, and ultimately what I'd been made aware is that it had risen in price and it had grown by 40%, which was just incredible. So for me, I think one of the key messages out of that is ultimately you could almost foresee as whisky investment as a really good alternative to putting money in a bank account, because ultimately, rather than getting a couple of percent, you could, in my instance, grow your money by 40% in 18 months. And that to me is a really powerful message, because normally we actually think of whisky as a real long-term goal, whereas ultimately you could put it in and flip it in a couple of years' time and get some good profits to then grow your portfolio again. For whisky, steadily we've always seen an increase in about between 7 and 10% each year. So for me, I felt that that was a really good option for alternative investing. And ultimately, let's face it, whisky is always going to be a commodity for people to drink because it's not going to go anywhere. I think whisky is actually growing across the global markets when you look at the sort of Asian markets, American markets and so on and so forth. For me, I think that took away a lot of the fear factor, is because it's always going to be there. I think when you compare it to the likes of things like cryptocurrency, for example, how volatile that market is, you could put a lot of money in that one day and it could literally be gone. Whereas whisky, yeah, I'd be very surprised if you lost money on it over a longer period of time. from all the research that I've done flipping the market and talking to many whisky investment providers, Spiritfilled are the best that I've come across. And ultimately, I have told family, I have told friends who have invested with Spiritfilled, and every single one of them have also had the same opinion of me, that it's been excellent. They've also had some really interesting returns on their barrels as well. And absolutely, if anybody asks me about whisky investment, Spiritfilled are the go-to company for me.